My name's Dominic, and I'm excited to be talking today about leading the time to money transformation. The reason I'm here, I am absolutely fascinated by what it takes to build high-performing companies and truly great teams. This has guided me across my career at a breadth of different companies. My journey began with startups. I've firsthand experienced taking ideas from a concept in my head and bringing them to market. I love that journey of what it looks like to actually build products. But as part of that, I've also firsthand made the mistakes of what not to do running a company. But more on that a little bit later. I was fortunate to then be able to be with Microsoft for 7 years and experience what it looks like to be at one of the world's truly great technology companies that has stood the test of time. And what does it actually look like to operate at a global scale? I was able to be there and see firsthand the experience of going Microsoft's transformation to a cloud-first, AI-first company. And these days, well, I'm a principal product manager with Atlassian. Atlassian's certainly no longer a startup, though it was one of the most successful and is one of the most successful startups ever from Australia, which is where I'm based. But Atlassian is also not the same size as Microsoft, not just yet anyway. So it's in this interesting scaling phase. I've seen Atlassian double in terms of the number of employees, add more products. And as part of this, across these different experiences, I've seen different leadership styles. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. I want to focus on 2 leadership style examples. There are many, but these combined represent most of them. And so that is often leading through direction, which is then giving very detailed instructions to your colleagues, or for those here in the audience who are maybe an individual contributor, experiencing what it's like being told what to do next as part of very clear, here's this task, complete it, move on to the next task. But what I'd like to focus on is an alternative style. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with leading through direction. You can build, and there are many successful companies that have gone down that path. But I'd like to talk to you about the impact of leading through connection. This is giving people clarity on their work, giving people clarity on how their work is then lining up back into larger goals for both the team, but also overall for the business. And this is really important in a world right now where we're seeing there is a real challenge for, say, startups to be able to then get funding, when there is challenges for existing established companies to be able to continue to scale. And so this is what I want to focus on then, is in a world where we as designers, product managers, developers, working together, often what we do is we focus then on the metrics that we have, the product outcomes we're trying to drive. But in a world where we're leading through creating connection, a key part of that leadership style is helping people to understand how does their work actually connect back into the business outcome that we're trying to drive. And so for your company to grow, it needs to be able to drive a positive rate of return. And so I've got a question for everyone. For those that are sitting and for those that are walking in, welcome. Please come up to the front. We have a bunch of seats just up the front here. The question that I have is, as we're working together then, as product builders, designers, developers, product managers, how often does your team deliver a positive return to your company? If you're sitting in the audience right now and you're maybe not feeling too good about the cost of the team that you're leading, where you're thinking of, well, the cost of the designers who are working really hard, the product managers, the developers, in terms of that total cost of salary plus the hosting and technology we use to be able to then drive the right real revenue return we need. Or maybe if you're sitting in the audience right now and you're like, I'm actually not sure what the number is at all for my team. Well, according to research done by Silicon Valley Product Group, the average is only 20%. 1 in 5. 1 in 5 new product capabilities that we release working together actually drives the business outcome that we need. And often a lot of what we do then is we're focusing on the product outcome, but how do we then make sure that drives the business outcome that we need? Which, whether we're individual contributors or we're of course leaders, this is part of that key connection part, which comes back to a reframe in thinking of what does it mean then to have both a great customer outcome in a way that works for our business. And so that's what I want to focus on, which is the reframe of not just time to market, but the full equation in terms of thinking of time to money. And every day at Atlassian, I work with designers, I work collaboratively with developers, and we focus a lot on then the next thing that we're building, listening to the market, taking in feedback. And often we focus it's easy to get very focused on bringing then that value to our customers, the time to market. But what I see a lot of teams struggle with is then considering the second part of the equation, which is getting that business outcome that we need, that helps give us the job so we can show up again tomorrow for our customers. So let me give you just a quick tactical example of what this might look like as designers, product managers, developers, and the other disciplines working together. Let's say it takes us 6 months to bring that new thing that our customers have been asking us for to market. Okay, 6 months. But if you are also in, say, a business-to-business software company like I am, it's fairly common that it takes about 6 months to then complete that deal cycle, the time that it takes to actually get new revenue in the door. So if it's 6 months, time to market, 6 months, then time to revenue, that means the total time to money is 1 year. And this is an important concept across every stage of company. If you're sitting there in the audience right now and you're part of a startup, that 1 year time to money, if you only have a limited funding and your roadmap, how might that land in terms of the results that you need? Or if you're sitting there today and you're part of maybe a more established, scaled company, and you're not so worried about then your runway, but as leaders, we're often then still responsible for making sure we deliver quarterly, yearly results. And so again, this helps us to understand the connection, to inform the decisions that we're trying to make. And what this means is we can also start to, of course, do long-term planning and figure out then how do we make sure we're continuously driving value for our customers in a way that delivers the outcome that we need for our business. And so this is what I really want to focus on today as part of our conversation, which is how do we make sure we close that loop to deliver a great customer outcome that also drives the business outcome that we need. And so that's why I'm going to be covering 3 topics. Firstly, time to money thinking and some of the lessons that I've learned the hard way as part of that. But also now, as I'm in a leadership role, how do I then work with my team? How do I take them on the journey to collaborate with other teams, other colleagues, to help us make better decisions? And one of the best ways that I found to be able to do that is this idea of using a driver tree. And a driver tree helps us to understand the product metrics that we use as designers, as product managers, as developers. How do those product metrics come together to connect back to the business outcome that we need? And then what I want to cover off is actions that you can take, leading your teams. And when I say leading your teams, this doesn't mean you have to be a people manager. This is also then leading through influence. How do you, as someone who is then trying to influence maybe colleagues in your team or another team, practical ways that you can apply this today as an individual contributor or as a people leader? So my journey began with time to money thinking in 2012. So join me. The year is 2012, and we're sitting there with a smartphone in our pocket. But the smartphone is going to be a bit different. The smartphone will be an iPhone 4S, which was released in that year, or a Samsung Galaxy S3 in 2012, or there was a third ecosystem that also had millions of users out there, and it was actually outselling the iPhone in places like Europe. And that was Windows Phone. And as I was doing a bit of research, I got really focused on time to market. I could see in 2012, the app stores, they're moving fast. New apps are coming out daily. The market expectations are constantly moving forward. And so I knew that I had to go ahead and build something in just a few months. And so I went on the journey and I was thinking about, well, I had a bunch of ideas, but what would really resonate with me that would be worth investing in my time over the next days, evenings, weekends? And the big idea that kept coming back was I'd actually been on a journey personally previous to that, which was I'd been on a large weight loss journey. I actually lost 25 kilos. So I looked a bit rounder than I do today. And it was a massive change for me. I changed, of course, both physically and both mentally. It really improved my health, my outlook on life, And I thought, what if I could give back and help someone on their fitness journey? And when I was using Windows Phone, I couldn't find an app that I liked that was just quick and easy to use while at the gym. So I thought, I have an idea. And worst case scenario, I have a target, at least one person who will use it, me, because I was wanting a better fitness app. And so in 6 months, I built a fitness app, and it was called Gym Pocket Guide. And I worked with a designer, and we focused on making it easy to use, beautifully designed. I released it in just a few months, and what happened next, I couldn't believe. In just the first few months, it went from 0 to 500,000 downloads, then to 1 million downloads, and then a few months after that to 1.5 million downloads. And we're in the year 2012, now 2013, and this actually made it one of the best rated and most downloaded apps in most markets around the world. And it was quickly growing. But remember, this was my first time to money realization, because I had only focused on half of the equation. I've been so focused on time to market that I hadn't considered plus revenue. And so I released Gym Pocket Guide for free. And so even though I created a fantastic customer outcome, you can see it just there. Over 2,000 reviews at the time. This was 4.8 on average, made it one of the best rated apps on the App Store of any category. Worked really hard on design, really focused on taking in customer feedback. The challenge with time to money is 1.5 million times $0 per user is $0 of revenue. And so what this meant actually though was I had delivered a great customer outcome, but I had failed to make a viable business. And it meant that I wasn't able to pay my friend who's a fantastic designer. It certainly meant I wasn't able to pay myself. And even though I tried to add in monetization later, I'd missed the greatest opportunity. And it meant I had delivered a great customer outcome that did not work for my company. And unfortunately, I then ultimately did have to shut down Gym Pocket Guide. But this isn't something that just happens at startups. I've seen this happen across companies. When we work together as product teams, it's very easy to focus on our metrics around usability, around retention. And it's common to then lose the focus on the business outcome that we're trying to achieve. And so what I'd like to share with you is one of the best tools that I have found, which is the idea of using a driver tree. And good news, a driver tree is actually very simple in concept. It's just like a real tree. And so I want you all to take a moment with me and imagine a tree branch in your mind. Or you're very welcome to use the tree branch up here as the reference point. And that tree branch, you'll notice, they can feel and look quite complex. There's a lot of connecting different parts. But as part of that branch, there is always a key theme. Those different connections come back to a singular point. And that tree branch also has leaves. They give you a visual indicator of the health of the tree. And just like a good metric is going to look nice and green, as leaves aren't doing so well, they start to change color, or in a metric terminology, they start to go red. So let me share with you an example, a small example to start. So here we have one part of our overall branch of our revenue driver tree. And for those that are wondering, hang on, how do we even start to build this? Good news, as part of the end of my talk, I'll actually give you a copy so you can try this out yourself. Because I can see some people taking photos. I'll give you one that you can use. But please, feel free to take photos. So what do we have here? We have part of our revenue driver tree. And we can see the leaves, the metrics. And it's not looking quite so healthy. We have quite a bit of red. But if we start at the top of the branch, we have the average dollar per customer. So that is the average dollars that we're getting for our customers. That might be $10, $50, $100, it depends on your company. But if we weren't using then this idea of understanding, well, how do the inputs influence then this higher level? And we were only focused on average dollar per customer, we might make the wrong decision as designers, as product managers, on what we need to actually be focusing on to help improve this. So let's go to the next level down and see how does this branch off? What are the metrics that come back up into? Well, we have our average dollar per seat, And that's going up year over year. The leaf is green. Good things. Why might that be, you ask? Well, let's say you are a product that has different editions as part of maybe a standard edition that's, say, $5, and then a premium or pro edition that's, say, maybe $8. And you're successful with your monetization. Your designers have built some really great, flows through the product. And you're, on average, getting more customers to step up from, say, that lower price edition to the higher price edition. And we're seeing that's why that's going up year over year. Or at least that's in a good trend. But where we're actually seeing the bigger impact is there is a negative that's going down year over year. And that is our average paid seats per customer. So we might be getting more customers in, but we're not seeing expansion within those customers. And now this gives you that aha moment. Okay, as we work together in design, in product, in dev, we have a challenge here that we're not seeing our customers bring our product to new use cases. It's not expanding within that customer base. And so what this means now is we can start to take more informed actions to drive the right inputs that helps us go back to the revenue outcome that we need. So right now, we're pretty zoomed in on one part of the tree. Let's take a little bit of a step back and have a look at how a few more parts of this branch connect together. What you're seeing here is, again, still a bit of a simplified example of how a revenue driver tree connects together, but you're actually now seeing the impact on that average dollar per customer, how that relates to customers, to then drive the overall monthly recurring revenue. And what you're looking at is something that is useful across every stage of business. If you're in a startup, you might own every single part of this tree. Or if you're in an established or scaling company or a global scale company, you might own a smaller part of this tree. But what's critical here is this helps to solve a very real problem, a very real challenge. And where I found this to be so useful was firstly when I was getting into the business and I was taking ownership of a part of the product or the entire product or maybe multiple products. It helps me understand how do these different metrics that I'm seeing connect together to drive the business outcome that we need. That was my first, okay, now I can see where I need to focus. But secondly, I found this is one of the best tools that you can use to help create clarity for your team, to help create clarity for the other teams that you're working with. Because what you can start to do is show, hey, this is why we need to maybe shift part of our strategy on, say, we're doing quite well with user retention. We need to move across to focus more from a design perspective, from a product perspective, on user expansion. It's been one of the best ways that I've been able to help orientate quickly within a meeting and talk about, well, this is why we're having this conversation today. This is how your work relates to my work and why we might need to make a change. And it's been one of the best ways that I found to then help to create that clarity at larger and larger scales. And I will call out, this is still a simplified example, but the key part here is now what we can see is where we need to focus on together. It helps give us that clarity of focus to then be able to start to make decisions on what actions do we need to take. And I actually want to share with you one of the most famous examples that I can, because I actually also got to experience it firsthand. And this was the experience of seeing the approach of leading impact through creating clarity. And that was while I was at Microsoft. The year is 2017. And I had just joined Microsoft Teams as an early growth product manager. It was an incredible experience. I got to relocate from Australia to the United States, to Seattle, the big head office with 50,000 people. But back then, Microsoft Teams was still a very small startup. In 2017, Microsoft Teams had 2 million monthly active users. Slack was way ahead. There were many competitors in the market. Even Atlassian was a competitor at the time. And most people doubted that Microsoft could ever catch up, let alone become the leader in the new generation of collaboration and chat apps. And so the leadership team were very, very clear. We had one outcome that we were driving for in the product team, and that was around monthly active users, MAU. And what we know is we had to increase MAU at a rapid rate. It was so clear that in the building where I worked, we had TVs in every floor that showed monthly active users, the live count. And every review was around, how is the work that you're doing contributing back to that goal, that outcome we're trying to achieve? But when I reflected on the scale, the opportunity ahead, but also what it would take to go on this hyper-growth journey, not just to go from 2 million to 2.5 or 4 million, but to 10x, 20x, 50x that number, I realized I would need to rethink how I was even approaching myself and in my role. I realized that I'd really need to start thinking about this with a personal approach to try and make what I was doing every 12 to 18 months completely replaced, completely redundant, by passing on my skills to others, so that way we could continue to rapidly scale. And so what that actually looked like was in the first 2 years, I worked as a product manager on growth, was all around enabling those initial monthly active users. I would go and work with large strategic customers. Sometimes though, it was as basic as showing them how to send a chat message, how to schedule a meeting. And through that process, we were identifying use cases, identifying friction in the product experience, and rapidly bringing that in to make the product better and grow faster. And then as I started to listen and see that success of customers going from 0 to 10 MAU, to 100, to 1,000 monthly active users, then I saw the next opportunity, which is where I'd realized now my role was no longer doing this basic enablement. I passed that on to our sales team, our customer success teams, our partners. Now my role within this growth product management was focused on driving MAU at scale, monthly active users from say 1,000 to 10,000 or 10,000 to 40,000. And that was all around automation. How do we start to have APIs, for example, that would sync with identity systems? So that way, when you come into an organization, the team was just there. You've been added at the right time to the right team, so you can just focus on working together, communicating with each other. And then we continued to rapidly grow, and we grew to 145 million active users. And at that point, it was now about incorporating the platform apps, the experiences that help you stay in there and stay in the flow of work. And in the 4 years that I was with Microsoft Teams as a growth product manager, I saw the journey from 2 million to 250 million monthly active users. And today, Microsoft Teams is well over 300 million active users. Oh, thanks. Yeah, it was an incredible journey. I saw a lot. But during this process, I was consistently evolving how I showed up, how I approached my role. But what didn't change was that clarity. Leadership was always talking about how is your work today connecting back to the MAU growth that we needed to achieve. I was empowered to make those changes, to pivot, to make that next step. Always it was about then, how does that drive back to the goal that we need? And of course, Microsoft is very well known for being a very successful business. They certainly both have time to market plus time to then revenue, so we get our time to money. But what's really interesting is looking at it right now, it looks like success was always going to happen. But I can tell you, in 2017, it was just a hope. Microsoft had come off the back of a number of failures. One of the big ones I had experienced firsthand was Windows Phone was no longer a relevant ecosystem. All of those hours and effort I had put into something that now no longer existed. And so what I believe made a massive difference was this focus from leadership of leading through creating connection. And I'm not saying that this is perfect for everyone or every company. Leadership is a choice. It's your decision on the right approach that you want to take for your team, for your company. What I can say is I've firsthand seen the impact of leading through connection. And this applies from being at a startup to a scaling company to a truly global enterprise scale like Microsoft. And so this is where I want to bring it all together, the examples that I shared, which is time to money thinking is about helping create that connection. That connection with our designers, with our product managers, with our developers. And how do we, as builders of creating customer outcomes, then drive the business outcome that we need? And I found driver trees are one of the best tools for empowering your colleagues, your teams to understand how does their work connect back together to that larger outcome that we need. And so this is where I believe the time to money transformation helps to deliver great customer outcomes that work for your company. Thank you very much.